Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Thursday, January 17th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games, look ahead to tonight's slate in each of those sports, go over round 2 of the Australian Open, or I should say the rest of round 2, preview day 1 or round 3 for both the men's and the women's side, and pick the matchups, NBA power rankings, the latest news on Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, and I'll do my NFL mock draft followed by my best bet. Alright, college basketball, there were some interesting results last night, some big upsets in mid-majors, and some teams just rolling. Iowa State upsets number 8, Texas Tech 68-64, a big win for Steve Prohm's team. They're 13-4. Texas Tech is 15-2. Number 14, Auburn defeats Texas A&M 85-66. They avoid the dreaded trap. They're 13-3. A&M is 7-8. Kansas State upsets number 20, Oklahoma 74-61. An impressive win for the Wildcats. They're 13-4, and so is Oklahoma. Number 21, Houston defeats SMU 69-58. An impressive win for the Cougars. They're 17-1. SMU is 11-6. Number 23, Iowa upset Penn State 83-82. Yes, that's an upset because Iowa was an underdog in this game. Iowa's 15-3 and Penn State is 7-11. Rhode Island defeats St. Bonaventure 75-63. Rhode Island is 9-7. Bonaventure 6-11. St. John's defeats Creighton 81-66. A much-needed win for St. John's. They're 15-3. Creighton's 10-8. Loyola Maryland defeats Boston University 81-73. In overtime, Loyola is 6-12. Boston University is 9-9. Lehigh defeats American 83-76. Lehigh is 11-5. American is 8-8. Duquesne defeats Richmond 74-68. Duquesne is 12-5 and Richmond is 7-10. Navy defeats Lafayette 85-77. Navy 6-10. Lafayette 4-12. Louisville defeats Boston College 80-70. Louisville's 12-5 and BC is 9-7. UMBC defeats Binghamton 68-49. UMBC's 10-9 and Binghamton is 5-13. Hartford defeats Maine 77-76 as Hartford's 9-9 and Maine's 3-16. Vermont defeats New Hampshire 73-59. Vermont 14-4. New Hampshire is 3-14. Liberty defeats Kennesaw State 62-41. Liberty's 15-4 and Kennesaw's 3-15. Lipscomb defeats NJIT 70-52. Lipscomb is 13-4 and NJIT is 13-5. North Florida defeats Stetson 87-77. North Florida 9-10. Stetson 4-14. South Carolina upsets Vanderbilt 74-71. South Carolina and Vanderbilt are both 9-7 now. Army defeats Colgate 91-81. Army is 8-10. Colgate's 10-8. George Mason defeats UMass 68-63. George Mason is 10-8. UMass is 7-10. North Alabama defeats Jacksonville 91-88. UNA is 6-13 and Jacksonville University is 8-11. UMass Lowell defeats Albany 84-72. UMass Lowell 10-9 and Albany's 5-13. Campbell defeats UNC Asheville 70-53. Campbell 9-8. UNC Asheville's 2-16. Presbyterian defeats Hampton 85-70. Presbyterian 10-9. Hampton is 7-9. High Point defeats South Carolina Upstate 71-54. High Point 10-8. South Carolina Upstate is 5-14. Longwood upsets Winthrop 75-61. Longwood 12-7. Winthrop 11-6. Tulsa defeats UConn 89-83. Much needed win for Tulsa. They're 12-6 and UConn's 10-8. Temple defeats East Carolina 85-74, so they avoid a trap. Temple's 14-3. ECU is 8-9. Sam Houston State defeats A&M Corpus Christi 72-50. Sam Houston State is 9-8, and A&M Corpus Christi is 7-10. McNeese defeats Nichols 86-75. McNeese is 6-12, and Nichols is 10-8. South Dakota State defeats North Dakota 78-74. South Dakota State is 15-6. North Dakota is 8-11. New Orleans defeats Stephen F. Austin 68-61. New Orleans 9-7. Stephen F. Austin is 8-8. Southeast Louisiana defeats Lamar 76-69. Southeast Louisiana 5-12. Lamar 8-10. George Washington upsets LaSalle 59-56. George Washington 6-11. LaSalle 3-13. VCU defeats Dayton 76-71. VCU 12-5. Dayton 11-6. Evansville upsets Missouri 70-64. Evansville 9-9. Missouri State 8-10. Drake upsets Bradley 69-52. I don't get why Drake is being disrespected by Vegas. Drake is 13-5 and Bradley is 8-10. Northern Iowa defeats Indiana State 69-64. Northern Iowa 8-10. Indiana State 10-7. Central Arkansas defeats Incarnate Word 77-60. Central Arkansas 8-10. Incarnate Word 6-11. Abilene Christian defeats Houston Baptist 75-68. Abilene Christian 15-3. Houston Baptist 5-10. Butler defeats DePaul 87-69. I overvalue DePaul. Butler's 11-7. DePaul's 10-6. Illinois upsets Minnesota 95-68. Illinois is 5-12. Minnesota's 13-4. So Vegas did indeed know something there. Alabama defeats Missouri 70-60. Alabama 11-5. Missouri 9-6. Denver defeats North Dakota State 80-65. Denver 6-14. North Dakota State 8-11. Clemson defeats Georgia Tech 72-60. Clemson barely covers. They're 11-6, and Georgia Tech is 10-7. Long Beach State defeats UC Irvine 80-70. Another upset. Long Beach State is 8-10. UC Irvine's 14-5. Wichita State defeats UCF 75-67. Wichita State 8-8. UCF 13-3. Utah State defeats San Jose State 81-63. Utah State 13-5. San Jose State 3-13. And last but not least, Air Force defeats UNLV 106-88. An impressive win for the Falcons. They're 7-10, and UNLV is 9-7. All right. Tonight's slate is pretty big. A lot of mid-majors and some major schools. 7 o'clock, you have Louisiana Tech and Old Dominion, Niagara and Siena, Georgia Southern and Troy, Charleston and Northeastern, UNC Wilmington and Hofstra, VMI and East Tennessee State, Canisius and Quinnipiac, Northern Kentucky and Cleveland State, Towson and Drexel, Tennessee State and Tennessee Tech, Fairfield and Monmouth, FAU and Marshall, James Madison and Delaware, Wright State, Youngstown State, Manhattan, St. Peter's, Southern Miss Charlotte, 7:30 Tennessee Martin, Eastern Kentucky, the Citadel and Stanford, UNC Greensboro and Western Carolina, UTSA and Middle Tennessee, Southeast Missouri State and Morehead State, 8 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Number 6, Michigan State at Nebraska. Michigan State's a 1.5-point favorite. I think that Nebraska pulls off the slim upset here at home. The Cornhuskers need this game to get themselves back in the rankings a little bit. I think the Spartans are due for a loss, and I think Nebraska will hand them a loss there, and I believe it would be their first loss in conference play. Mercer and Chattanooga, Little Rock at Texas State, South Dakota at Oral Roberts, Omaha, Western Illinois, FIU at Western Kentucky, Arkansas State and Texas Arlington, Murray State in Eastern Illinois, UIC at Milwaukee, UTEP at UAB, Georgia State and South Alabama, IUPUI at Green Bay, 8:15 Belmont at Jacksonville State, 8:30 Sacramento State at Northern Arizona, Portland State at Southern Utah, Austin Peay and SIU Edwardsville, 9 o'clock, Loyola Marymount at number 5, Gonzaga. Gonzaga's going to destroy Marymount. Marymount, nice story. They're 13-4, but they're nowhere on the level of Gonzaga. Nobody in the West Coast Conference is on the level of Gonzaga. Gardner-Webb at Radford on ESPNU. Both teams are 11-6. I think Radford wins the game, but Gardner-Webb covers the 6.5. ESPN2, Stanford at Washington. Washington's favored by 10.5. I think Washington wins and covers. Stanford is probably the worst team in the Pac-12. Idaho State and Weber State, UT Rio Grande and Utah Valley, Chicago State and Grand Canyon, San Francisco and Pacific, 9 o'clock on ESPN, Oregon at Arizona. Arizona's a 5.5-point favorite. This is your Dave Pasch, Bill Walton special. I think Oregon is going to miss Bowl, and Sean Miller's team tends to get up for these games, and I think Sean Miller's team is poised to steal an at-large bid, and I think Arizona goes out and wins this game. 10 o'clock on the Pac-12 Network, California, Washington State. Washington State is shockingly a 5.5-point favorite. I think that Cal can pull off this outright. I'm going to say they cover and Washington State wins. How about that? And that's at 10 o'clock. And then you have New Mexico State at Seattle, UC Riverside and Cal State Fullerton, San Diego at Portland, UMKC at Cal State Bakersfield, 10 o'clock Fox Sports 1, Oregon State at Arizona State. Arizona State is favored by 4. Oregon State is a sleeper to make the tournament. I think Arizona State wins this game. Bobby Hurley needs this. I think Arizona State makes it because they have a lot of good wins, notably the win over Kansas. But they need this game against their conference rival. So give me Bobby Hurley's team to win and cover the 4. Hawaii at Cal State, Northridge, UC Santa Barbara and UC Davis, Santa Clara at St. Mary's, and 11 o'clock on ESPNU. BYU at Pepperdine. BYU is a 3.5-point favorite. I think Pepperdine's going to pull off the upset. I'm not that impressed with BYU, especially away from home. They should have lost to Pacific a couple weeks ago on a Thursday night. And I think they'll lose here to Pepperdine, who isn't that bad of a team. NBA, it was a big slate last night. The Pistons defeat the Magic 120-115 in overtime. A much-needed win for the Detroit Pistons. They're 19-24. Orlando's 19-25. Blake Griffin, who's having perhaps the best year of his career, had 30. Andre Drummond had 14 with 22 boards. Reggie Jackson and Reggie Bullock each had 13. Off the bench, Langston Galloway 13, and Luke Kennard had 14. Aaron Gordon had 12. Jonathan Isaacs had 10. Nick Vucevic had 24. DJ Augustine had 13. Evan Fournier had 18. And off the bench, Terrence Ross had 24, continuing his case for the sixth man of the year. And Mo Bamba did not play in this game. The Celtics defeat the Raptors 117-108. Boston goes to 26-18. Toronto drops to 33-13. A much-needed win for the Boston Celtics at home on national TV. Kyrie Irving had 27 with 18 assists. Al Horford had 24 with 7 boards. Jason Tatum had 16 with 10 boards. Off the bench, Gordon Hayward had 18. He's starting to look better and better by the game in his new role. Kawhi Leonard had 33. Serge Ibaka had 22 with 10 boards. Kyle Lowry had 10 with 7 assists and 6 boards. Danny Green had 15 with 6 boards. And off the bench, Norman Powell and Greg Monroe each had 11. The Nets defeat the Rockets 145-142 in overtime. A fantastic win for the Brooklyn Nets. They're 23-23. Houston drops to 25-19. Spencer Dinwiddie, another dark horse candidate for the sixth man of the year. 33 points and 10 assists off the bench. Also off the bench, giving a contribute, was DeMarre Carroll, who had 22. And out of the starters, Joe Harris had 17. Rodions Caruso had 14. Jared Allen had 20 with 24 boards. D'Angelo Russell had 10 with 7 assists. And Treveon Graham had 21. James Harden, 58 points, 10 boards, and 6 assists, and shot 16 of 34 and 5 for 19 from 3. This guy's been on an incredible run. I do think he's the front runner for the MVP with the scoring barrage and carrying this team without Clint Capella and Chris Paul. So the narrative is going to change for Harden as long as Houston finishes in the top 4 in the West. And then the only way Giannis wins it over him is if the Bucks are your 1 seed. PJ Tucker had 20 with 10 boards. Austin Rivers had 13, 6 assists and 5 boards. And Eric Gordon had 20. Off the bench, Gerald Green had 15 with 5 3-pointers. The Bucks defeat the Grizzlies 111-101. A good win for Milwaukee to avoid what I thought was a trap. 32-12 on the year. Memphis is 19-25. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 27 points and 11 boards. Chris Middleton had 11 with 5 assists and 6 boards. Eric Bledsoe had 16. Off the bench, DJ Wilson had 13, and Sterling Brown had 11. Marc Gasol and Mike Conley each had 14. Off the bench, Jermichael Green had 14. Omar Caspi had 17, and Shelvin Mack had 11. The Spurs defeat the Mavericks 105-101. Impressive come-from-behind win for San Antonio. as they go to 26-20. Dallas drops to 20-24. Marco Bellinelli off the bench had 17 points, including 3 3-pointers. Patty Mills had 14 off the bench. Davis Bertans had 12 off the bench. Now the starters, Rudy Gay and DeMar DeRozan, each had 14, and Bryn Forbes had 12. Luka Doncic was the best player on the court, even in defeat. 25 points, 8 boards, and 8 assists. Harrison Barnes had 11. Wesley Matthews had 13. And off the bench, Dorian Finney-Smith had 12. The Trailblazers defeat the Cavaliers 129-112. An impressive win for Portland. They've been playing good basketball lately. They're 27-19. Cleveland's 9-36. Damian Lillard, 3 points. Yusuf Nurkic, how about this? 10 points, 10 boards, 10 assists. Jake Layman had 18. Alafrika Aminu had 14. CJ McCollum had 19. Off the bench, Zach Collins had 11. And Mo Harkless, yet again, another DNP coach's decision. Colin Sexton had 11. Rodney Hood had 20. Off the bench, Jordan Clarkson had 22. Cam Payne had 12. Ante Zizic had 16 with 8 boards. The Warriors defeated the Pelicans 147-140 in what was a fun game on ESPN last night. Golden State's 31-14. New Orleans is 21-24. Stephen Curry was phenomenal. 41 points, 9 of 17 from 3-point range. When he goes off for 3 like he did last night, that is must-watch television. Klay Thompson had 19 with 7 boards. Kevin Durant had 30 with 15 boards. Draymond Green had 17 points and 14 assists. That was the best I've seen Draymond Green shoot the ball in a while. He shot well the other night in Denver. So maybe he's turning into the player that he's perceived to be. Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala each had 13 off the bench. Anthony Davis, before getting hurt in the final minutes of the game, 30 points, 18 boards, 7 assists. Julius Randle had 23 with 7 boards. Drew Holiday had 25 with 7 assists and 6 boards. Etuan Moore had 17. Off the bench, Nikola Mirotic had 29, including 6 3-pointers. And last but not least, the Jazz defeated the Clippers 129-109. A great win for Utah. They're 25-21. Clippers are 24-20. Utah has been playing great basketball. Donovan Mitchell at 28. Rudy Gobert at 23 with 22 boards. Derek Favors had 11 with 10 boards. Royce O'Neal had 10 with 7 boards. Off the bench, Jay Crowder had 23, including 5 3-pointers. And Kyle Korver had 19, including 4 3-pointers. That bench is turning out really nice for Utah. Tobias Harris had 17. Avery Bradley had 15. Montrezl Harrell off the bench had 11. Lou Williams off the bench had 23 with 6 boards and 6 assists. Today's games at 3 o'clock on NBA TV, London. Knicks against the Wizards. The Wizards will win this game, but I won't be shocked if the Knicks stay within the number. The Wizards are not a good team. John Wall's out. They need this game if they want to keep pace in the East and try to get that 8 seed. So I do think the Wizards will come out a little desperate. I don't know who covers, but that number I think is right on the money with the Wizards being 8-point favorites. I think there's a great chance this is a push and the Knicks ends up getting the push in garbage time. So give me Washington in the London game. 7 o'clock, you have the Kings at the Hornets, and on TNT, you have the 76ers at the Pacers. Marv Albert and Chris Webber will be on the call. Pacers are 3.5-point favorites. I just like the way how the Philadelphia 76ers have been playing. I think they win this game outright, led by Joel Embiid, who will be the best player on the court in this game. Give me Philly in normal NBA type of game, which is right now high scoring and a lot of 3-pointers. I think Jimmy Butler's going to have a good game. Ben Simmons has been playing well. Won't be surprised at all if Indiana wins, but I think that Philly comes out and makes a statement on the road. You have the Suns at the Raptors at 7:30. The Bulls at the Nuggets at 9 o'clock. And 9:30 on TNT, you have the Lakers at the Thunder. LeBron James is not back yet. OKC is minus 10.5, and I think the Thunder win and cover easily. I think they win by 20. Russell Westbrook's going to have a triple-double. Paul George is playing the best basketball of his career. Dennis Schroeder's been a great sixth man. And Billy Donovan has done a phenomenal job coaching this team this year. I don't get the Luke Walton hot seat talk. I just think that's fanfare. And I think that LeBron being out really has hurt them, obviously. And I get why the media is saying that Luke Walton should be in trouble because, obviously, without LeBron, his flaws are showing a little bit. But if you're missing the best player in the world, there's nothing you can really do about it. The Lakers are still a fine team. They're not that terrible without him, but I think they're running into a buzzsaw tonight. So give me the Thunder at home big. The NHL. Small slate last night. 5 games. The Senators defeat the Avalanche 5-2. Good win for the rebuilding Senators. They are 18-24-5. Colorado's 21-18-8. Number one star of the game with 2 goals and an assist. Former Avalanche Matt Duchene. Number 2 star of the game with 30 saves on 32 shots, Andres Nelson. And the number 3 star of the game with a goal, Mark Stone. The Flyers defeat the Bruins 4-3. A much-needed win for the Philadelphia Flyers. They are 18-23-6. Boston's 26-16-5. I did say this was a possible trap game for the Bruins, and it turns out to be true. Number 1 star of the game with a hat trick, Sean Couturier. Number 2 star of the game with 39 saves on 42 shots, Corey Hart. Number 3 star of the game with 2 goals, Peter Saharlik. The Sabres defeat the Flames 4-3 in overtime. An impressive win for the Buffalo Sabres on the road. Much needed win for them. They're 24-17-6. Calgary is 30-13-5. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and assist, Johnny Gaudreau. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Jack Eichel. And number 3 star of the game with a goal, Rasmus Dahlin. The Oilers defeat the Canucks 3-2 in a shootout. The Oilers are 23-21-3. Vancouver 21-21-6. So a much needed win for Edmonton. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and an assist, Marcus Granlund. Number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Number 3 star of the game with 20 saves on 22 shots, Mikko Koskinen, who looks like the new starting goalie in place of Cam Talbot. The Coyotes defeat the Sharks 6-3 to snap the Sharks' 7-game winning streak. That was indeed a trap game for San Jose. They're probably looking ahead a little bit. Arizona's 21-22-3. San Jose is 28-14-7. Number 1 star of the game with a goal, Olivier Ekman-Larsson. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Clayton Fisher. Number 3 star of the game with an assist, Mario Kempe. Tonight's slate is bigger. On NBCSN at 7 o'clock, you have the Blackhawks and the Rangers, 2 rebuilding teams. I think the Rangers are ahead of the Blackhawks in their rebuild. The Blackhawks will have a lot of big names on the books. So do the Rangers, but the Rangers, with their sell-off at the deadline last year, gave themselves a jump start. We know the Blackhawks just sold off Ryan Hartman, who fetched them a first-round pick. But I think the Blackhawks should be more bolder about their rebuild a little bit. And you know that they're going to be big spenders in free agency this summer. And so will the Rangers. I think the Rangers are going to win this game. I like how they played the other night against Carolina. The Blackhawks were terrible in New Jersey. I'm going to say the Rangers win, but this goes to overtime. Let's go 4-3 Rangers in overtime. And if Henrik Lundqvist doesn't play, Chicago will win. I do think Henrik Lundqvist plays, so there's your difference maker to me. The Blues at the Bruins, the Devils at the Islanders, 7:30 the Maple Leafs at the Lightning, 8 o'clock the Jets at the Predators, the Ducks at the Wild, and at 8:30 you have the Kings at the Stars. So the slate of hockey games is not as big as I thought. It's only 7 games. I thought there was 10 on tonight's slate. We're going to start with women's side of the Australian Open. I'm just going to go through the results. We'll start with last night before we get to the overnight, obviously. 13-seeded Anastasia Sevastova defeats Bianca Andreescu. 7-seeded Carolina Pliskova defeats Madison Brengle. 21-seeded Wang Qiang defeats Alexandra Krunik. 27-seeded Camelia Georgi defeats Iga Swiatek. 6-seeded Alina Svitolina defeats Victoria Kuzmova. 12-seeded Elise Mertens defeats Margarita Grospayan. 28-seeded Hish Sui defeats Laura Siegman. 17-seeded Madison Keys defeats Anastasia Peptova. Tamia Baskinski defeats Natalia Vizlinskaseva. Zhang Suhai defeats Carolina Pliskova. And in your overnights, 4-seeded Naomi Osaka defeats Tamara Zdenek. Venus Williams defeats Elise Cornet. 1-seeded Simona Halep defeats Sophia Kenin. Diana Yastremska upsets number 23-seeded Carla Suarez Navarro. 16-seeded Serena Williams defeats Eugenie Bouchard. And last but not least, Gabrielle Muguruza, your 18th seed, defeats Johanna Konta. And in tonight's matches, you have 15-seeded Ashley Barty against Maria Sakkari. Give me Barty there, although I do think Sakkari has a chance. Amanda Anisimova against 11-seeded Arina Sabalenka. Give me Sabalenka there. Alexandra Sasnovich against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. Give me Sasnovich there. 5-seeded Solane Stevens against 31-seeded Petra Marchik. Give me Solane Stevens, although I think Marchik has a chance. 30-seeded Maria Sharapova against 3-seeded Caroline Wozniacki. I do think Sharapova has a real chance, but I think Wozniacki wins. And your 3 overnight matches, you have Petra Kvitova against Belinda Bencic. Give me Kvitova, she's your 8th seed. You have Danielle Rose-Collins against 19th-seeded Caroline Garcia. Give me Garcia there. And Kimberly Burrell against Angelique Kerber. Give me Kerber there. Now we'll move on to the men's side of things, as this resulted in a lot of interesting results. 8-seeded Kei Nishioka defeats Ivo Karlovic. Joao Sosa upsets number 32-seeded Philip Kohlschreiber. 16-seeded Milos Raonic defeats Stan Wawrinka. 23-seeded Pablo Carreno Busta defeats Ilya Ivashka. 11th-seeded Borna Koric defeats Martin Fucsovics. 12-seeded Fabio Fugini defeats Leonardo Mayer. And Pierre Hughes Herbert upsets 24-seeded Chung Hyung. Overnight, Filip Krajinovic defeated Evgeny Dusonki. 21-seeded David Goffin defeated Marius Kopel. Alex Boat upset number 29-seeded Giles Simone. 28-seeded Lucas Paoli defeated Max Marderer. 25-seeded Denis Shapovalov defeated Taro Daniel. Alexei Popyrin upset number 7-seeded Dominic Thiem. That's a very big surprise of this side of the bracket for the men's. 15-seeded Daniil Medvedev defeated Ryan Harrison. 4-seeded Alexander Zverev defeated Jeremy Chardy. And Novak Djokovic defeated Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. And to round 3 beginning tonight we go. We have 14-seeded Stefanos Tsitsipas against 19-seeded Nicolas Basilashvili. Give me Tsitsipas there. You have Tomas Berdych against 18-seeded Diego Schwartzman. Give me Schwartzman. You have Francis Tiafoe against Andreas Seppi. Give me Seppi. Taylor Fritz against 3-seeded Roger Federer. I do not see Federer going down early. 22-seeded Roberto Bautista Agut against 10-seeded Karen Khachanov. Give me Khachanov there. 20-seeded Grigor Dimitrov against Thomas Fabiano. Give me Dimitrov there. And then a couple overnighters, too, with 27-seeded Alex de Manier against 2-seeded Rafael Nadal. I really like how de Manier has played, but Nadal is one of a kind, and he'll win this match. And then at 5 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, you have 6-seeded Marin Cilic against 26-seeded Fernando Verdasco. Give me Cilic there. Now we'll move on to NBA Power Rankings. I do these weekly, or at least try to. We'll go from 30 to 1 as I do each and every time I do this. Number 30 is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're Tryon for Zion, as well as the next 4 teams on this list. 29, the Phoenix Suns. 27, the Chicago Bulls. 27, the New York Knicks. And 26, the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks have actually played a little better lately. They upset Oklahoma City at home, which they scored 142 points in. The Hawks are a team that can score, but they're just a team that can't defend. A lot of these tanking teams are like that. New York, even on a given night, is a team that can score with anybody. And same with the Phoenix Suns. The Cavaliers and the Bulls just flat out don't try. 25 is the Memphis Grizzlies. That was a tough loss for them. Their season's going in the wrong direction. They should start selling pieces rather than buying pieces. And same for number 24, the Orlando Magic. That was a tough loss last night against the Pistons, although they did knock off a couple contenders in the last week in Houston and the Lakers. Number 23 is the Washington Wizards. They play today in London against the Knicks. They have to come out and win that game if they still have a chance to sneak in there in the playoffs. 22 is the Dallas Mavericks. This team has not played that great lately. Luka Doncic is single-handedly keeping them in these games, but they've been blowing leads left and right. I'm interested to see which direction they decide to go with the trade deadline, whether they want to tank or whether they want to try to win and get to the playoffs. I believe the pick they trade away to the Hawks is top 3 protected, so I don't think they're going to want to tank, because I don't think that they'll catch the Knicks or the Suns or the Cavs or any of those bad teams from the East. Number 21 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They've been playing a lot better under intern coach Ryan Saunders, except that terrible loss in Philadelphia. Number 20 is the Charlotte Hornets. That was a good win in San Antonio the other day. 19 is the Detroit Pistons. They did okay on the West Coast. They lost to the Lakers, but they beat the Clippers. And then they beat the Magic at home in overtime the other day. Number 18 is the New Orleans Pelicans. They went toe-to-toe for the Warriors for a while in that game last night. They have pretty much everybody healthy. They have Nikola Mirotic coming off the bench, which I like. But it's just tough to beat the Warriors in Oracle Arena when they're hitting on all cylinders. The Warriors. Number 17 is the Sacramento Kings. They've been a pleasant surprise this year. They're, I think, going to end up being a buyer because they don't own their draft pick. Number 16 is the Miami Heat. They've had a couple nice wins, most notably on TNT over the Boston Celtics the other night. Number 15, the Brooklyn Nets. I never ever thought that they'd be in the top 15 in my NBA Power Rankings this season, but here they are. That was a fantastic win in Houston last night. They've picked off a couple other contenders within the last couple weeks. They beat the Celtics. And I think that this team is a candidate to be the 8th seed. I think Spencer Dinwiddie has to be considered for the 6th Man of the Year award. And Ken Atkinson's a pretty darn good coach. Number 14 is the Los Angeles Lakers. No LeBron James is a big problem. He could very well be back next week. Maybe he's back for the Rockets game. You never know. Number 13 is the San Antonio Spurs. They've been playing good basketball. That was not a good performance against the Charlotte. That was a good bounce-back win in Dallas. So I guess that cancels each other out. 12 is the Los Angeles Clippers. They've been having some weird blowout home losses lately. Maybe I have them too high, but maybe I'm bitter about San Antonio losing to Charlotte the way they did. And the Clippers have been playing good opponents other than the Pistons. Number 11 is the Indiana Pacers. They have a big game tonight at home on TNT against the Sixers. Number 10 is the Utah Jazz. This team has been playing great basketball. They had that great win over the Lakers on Friday night, and then they blew out the Clippers in Los Angeles. This team is poised to go on some sort of run here to try to get a top 4 seed in the West and take advantage of LeBron James's injuries as well as the injuries on the Houston Rockets. Number 9 is the Portland Trailblazers. They've been playing good basketball of late, even though a lot of their wins have been against bad teams like the Bulls and the Cavs and the Knicks. Number 8 is the Boston Celtics. That was a much-needed win last night on national TV against the Raptors at home. This is a good home team, but a bad road team. And I think they have a move to make at the trade deadline. Number 7 is the Houston Rockets. They would have been much higher if they held off and beaten the Brooklyn Nets last night, but they didn't. James Harden has to be the MVP favorite right now. Number 6 is the Philadelphia 76ers. That was a great butt-whomping of the Minnesota Timberwolves the other day. That's how Philly should be looking against inferior teams. They have a big one tonight in Indianapolis against the Pacers. Number 5 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have a big one at home against the LeBron-less Lakers tonight, in which they have to come out and make a statement in. Number 4 is the Denver Nuggets. That was a very disappointing loss at home against the Warriors on Tuesday night. I'm interested to see how they rebound from that. Number 3 is the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo has just been fantastic. Mike Budenholzer has done a great job with this team. Number 2 is the Toronto Raptors. Yes, they lost in Boston last night, but that's okay. Boston needed that game more, so I'm giving the Raptors a pass for that. And plus, they weren't even favored in that game. And number 1 is the Golden State Warriors. Until proven otherwise, DeMarcus Cousins is coming back tomorrow night against the Clippers. And this team is going to be number 1 for a long time, I think. And the only way they get unseated is if they suffer another major injury or I see vulnerabilities. But this team has not been vulnerable. Ever since they lost to the Lakers at home on Christmas, this team has been fantastic. And Stephen Curry has been sensational. Kevin Durant's putting up great numbers. Klay Thompson and Draymond Green have both got off the slow starts this season, but both of them have seemed to be turning corners, and they're getting Boogie Cousins back tomorrow night. So that should be something fun to watch with those 5 on the court together. I want to talk a little baseball before I get into my NFL power rankings. Or I'm sorry, my NFL mock draft, I should say. Manny Machado was reportedly given an offer from the Chicago White Sox of only 7 years, $175 million. That caught me by surprise after many had suggested that the White Sox reportedly offers 8-year and $250 million. So, if what Buster Olney said, the 7 years, $175 million, was really true, then the New York Yankees and the Philadelphia Phillies have to be like, oh my goodness, we have to be upping our offers. And maybe some mystery teams get on. There's reportedly a mystery team in the sweepstakes, and I think it's the Dodgers, because the Dodgers had him last year. Yeah, it didn't work out, but he's a better player than Corey Seager. And who knows if Corey Seager is going to be the same player after his Tommy John surgery. So I think that's the mystery team involved here. I would have been tempted to say the St. Louis Cardinals were the mystery team, but they went out and traded for Paul Goldschmidt. They have a surplus of infielders. Meanwhile, so do the Dodgers and so do the Yankees. And even the Phillies have a surplus of infielders now with the addition of Gene Segura. So we'll see what happens with Manny. And meanwhile, for Bryce Harper, there's reportedly a mystery team out there for him, and many are speculating that it could be the Houston Astros. If he's added to that Astros lineup, they've become the instant favorites in the American League. But there's one issue there, is that they have failed to address starting pitching. So, yes, Harper does make them perhaps co-favorites with New York and Boston, but they still need to address their starting pitching. So that would be fun to see Harper and Carlos Correa, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, George Springer, all in the same lineup. Just like it'd be fun to see Harper in the same lineup as Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Didi Gregorius once he comes back, Gary Sanchez. And obviously it'd be fun to see Harper with Rhys Hoskins and Gene Segura. I mean, it'd be fun seeing Harper anywhere. And then obviously there's the chance that he resigns with the Nationals, which many people are speculating. But Jeff Passan of ESPN seems to think that Machado will end up in New York with the Yankees and that Harper will end up in Philadelphia with the Phillies. I'm starting to get the feeling that Machado ends up in New York after I thought that he was going to end up going to the White Sox. I said that about a week ago, but my mind keeps changing by the day. A week ago, I thought that the Yankees were out of the Manny Machado sweepstakes. Now I actually think they're back in because the prices seem to have dropped. I think New York could up their offer. And I really think that they could very well end up getting him and flipping Miguel Andujar for a starting pitcher. And on the flip side with Harper, I think it's either back to the Washington Nationals or to Philadelphia. I still wouldn't rule out the Dodgers, because why would the Dodgers trade Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp in a salary dump? That was a very NBA type of trade, and that tells me that's a precursor trade. Just like if New York traded Miguel Andujar to Cleveland with a bunch of other prospects for Corey Kluber, then New York gets an ace that they desperately can use. They go with Luis Severino in that rotation, and James Paxton too. Can't forget about him. And B, that opens up third base so they can go out and sign Manny Machado. And then, say if New York traded Giancarlo Stanton, then you would say, oh, that's a precursor for Bryce Harper. So, the trading of Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp from the Dodgers to the Reds to me is a precursor that the Dodgers are going to do something. And that something has to be Bryce Harper. I think it's a failure, because you're the Dodgers and you're Los Angeles and you're all about superstars. And you traded 2 outfielders to clear 1 spot. To me, it's for specifically Bryce Harper. I bet you Magic Johnson went out and told his front office, hey, make this trade so we can go out and sign this player. I mean, yeah, it makes sense for them to spin those assets they got for Puig and Kemp into Corey Kluber or JT Realmuto as well, but the Dodgers went out and traded for Russell Martin, so that rules them out of the sweepstakes for JT Realmuto, but you never know. I mean, some people thought that the signings of Tulowitzki and DJ LeMahieu ruled the Yankees out of Machado, but they're using LeMahieu as a utility player and Tulowitzki as shortstop. And then there's talk about them trading Andujar for a bona fide ace like Corey Kluber, and then they can go out and sign Manny Machado, so you never know with that. And the Dodgers are also in play for Kluber. So maybe they flip Jeter Downs and those other assets to Cleveland for Kluber. So you never know at this offseason. If you ask me right now, where do I think Manny Machado and Bryce Harper will go? I think at gunpoint, I'd say it's a 40% chance Bryce goes to Philadelphia, 20% back to DC, 15% Dodgers, and then 5% mystery team. I don't know who that could be. Astros, Yankees even, or whomever. And Machado, I'd say 33% Yankees, 33% Phillies, 30% White Sox, and then 4% mystery team. Now I'm going to talk about my NFL mock draft that I did the other day. I was supposed to do it on yesterday's podcast, but I forgot, so I'll do it today. Obviously, there's a new entry into the NFL mock draft that we discussed the other day. We're going to obviously start with number 1, the Arizona Cardinals. Nick Bosa, defensive end, Ohio State. Bosa is the best player in this draft and certainly has a chance to be a multi-time All-Pro player. The Cardinals have needs everywhere on the roster other than a quarterback, and getting a possible franchise player to lead your pass rush to go with Chandler Jones is very enticing. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle, Alabama. Williams was an intimidating presence in the middle of the Tide's defensive line the past few seasons. The Niners have some talent on their defensive line with DeForest Buckner and Solomon Thomas, and adding Williams to those guys would make that unit stronger. 3, New York Jets. Jonah Williams, offensive tackle, Alabama. Williams was the best lineman perhaps in the country this past season and did a great job protecting Tua Tagovailoa, a young quarterback that needs a good offensive line to Sam Darnold, which makes the Jets a logical fit here. 4, the Oakland Raiders. Josh Allen, defensive end, outside linebacker, Kentucky. Allen was the key cog to a Wildcats defense, which rode them to what was a phenomenal season. His draft stock has risen dramatically throughout the year, and the Raiders are a logical fit because they need an edge rusher, and they haven't replaced Khalil Mack's production yet. 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brian Burns, defensive end, outside linebacker, Florida State. Burns is someone whose draft stock has risen throughout the season due to his speed and good frame. Jason Pierre-Paul is someone who's nearing the end of his prime, and Burns would be a good long-term solution as a pass rusher. 6, New York Giants, Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State. Eli Manning's days of being a good starting quarterback in the league are over, and his future with the Giants is uncertain at this point. Haskins handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley and throwing it to Odell Beckham Jr. would only jumpstart his career and would be fun to watch. 7, Jacksonville Jaguars, Kyler Murray, quarterback, Oklahoma. The Blake Bortles experiment in Jacksonville should be over as Tom Coughlin is regretting paying him last offseason. Murray recently declared to the NFL draft instead of going to baseball, and despite his height, he just won the Heisman Trophy, and look how his preceder Baker Mayfield succeeded as a rookie and the league. 8, Detroit Lions, Greedy Williams, cornerback, LSU. The Lions have a lot of needs after yet another disappointing season. Williams would slide in to go with Darius Slay and Keandre Diggs to form a nice secondary for Matt Patricia. 9, the Buffalo Bills. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, Houston. Oliver was once projected a top 5 pick and his stock dropped dramatically. The Bills need to replace the newly retired Kyle Williams, and this could wind up being a major steal here, potentially, if Oliver lives up to his capability. 10, the Denver Broncos. Byron Murphy, cornerback, Washington. Yes, the Broncos need a quarterback for the future, but they also have a need in the secondary as 2 of their starters will be free agents. Murphy was the best defensive back on the Huskies this past season and would have an impact in the league. 11, the Cincinnati Bengals. Dalton Risner, offensive tackle, Kansas State. Risner had a phenomenal college career, and there's a good chance he's a day 1 draft pick. The Bengals' offensive line isn't awful, but Risner would be an upgrade over 2015 first-round bust Cedric Ogbuehi. 12, Green Bay Packers. Deontay Thompson, safety, Alabama. If the Packers want to get back in contention, they must fix their secondary, especially after trading away HaHa Clinton-Dix. Thompson is the best safety in the draft, and he'd be a great pick here by the Pack. 13, the Miami Dolphins. Clelin Ferrell, defensive end, Clemson. There are reports out there that the Dolphins are eyeing next year's quarterback studs like Tua Tagovailoa and Jake Fromm when they declare. Meanwhile, the Dolphins have needs at other positions, and Ferrell is someone that can start right away in the league and would pair nice with Cameron Wake on that defensive line. 14, the Atlanta Falcons. Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle, Clemson. Dabo Swinney has 3 great defensive linemen who project to go in the first round. Lawrence may have been suspended for the college football playoff, but he's arguably the most talented player of that trio and would be a nice addition to the Falcons' defensive line. 15, the Washington Redskins. Drew Lock, quarterback, Missouri. With Alex Smith's future uncertain, the Skins take perhaps their future franchise quarterback in Lock. Lock's stock has risen with a strong finish to his season and has a very strong arm. 16, the Carolina Panthers. Chris Lindstrom, guard, Boston College. The Panthers never replaced the free agent loss of Andrew Norwell last offseason. Lindstrom would be a good addition to this line to keep Cam Newton upright and to find holes for Christian McCaffrey in the run game. 17, the Cleveland Browns. DeAndre Baker, cornerback, Georgia. For once, the Browns really don't have many needs. The secondary can use another body, and Baker to go with Denzel Ward would be something fun to watch. 18, the Minnesota Vikings. Greg Little, offensive tackle, Ole Miss. The Vikings were arguably the league's most disappointing team this past season, and their biggest issue is protecting Kirk Cousins. Little would at least help the Vikings' offensive line finding holes for Dalvin Cook. 19, the Tennessee Titans. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss. Metcalf is perhaps the best receiver in the draft class, and the Titans make a good match because they are a team desperate for playmakers. Corey Davis hasn't really lived up to top 10 pick status, and Metcalf would immediately become their top option. 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Devin White, linebacker, LSU. White was the best linebacker in the country this past season, and he'd be a fine selection by a Steelers team that has a need here since they never really replaced Ryan Shazier. He is great off the ball and would make life easier for their secondary. 21, the Seattle Seahawks. Jache Polite, defensive end outside linebacker, Florida. Polite is someone coming off a breakthrough year in college, and his draft stock rose in light of it. The Seahawks need some young blood in their pass rush after Michael Bennett departed, and Polite would be a good choice. 22, Baltimore Ravens. N'Keal Harry, wide receiver, Arizona State. Harry is someone who could wind up being a steal from this spot. This would be a nice weapon for Lamar Jackson, who needs a downfield threat guy to help his development. 23, the Houston Texans. Cody Ford, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. Cornerback is another Texans' big need, but Deshaun Watson badly needs protection, and Ford would help the problem. The Texans have the worst offensive line perhaps in the sport, and that should be the team's top priority this offseason. 24, the Oakland Raiders. From the Chicago Bears. Rashawn Gary, defensive end, Michigan. The Raiders continue to build their pass rush by selecting Gary, who didn't really live up to his number 1 overall prospect ranking he was given in high school. If Gary produces in the pros, this will be a steal because he has a lot of potential. 25, the Philadelphia Eagles. Kelvin Harmon, wide receiver, North Carolina State. The Eagles have a very good roster despite numerous injuries that derailed them throughout the season. Whether it's Carson Wentz or Nick Foles next season, they do need another wideout, and Harmon is someone who could be good alongside Alshon Jeffrey. 26, the Indianapolis Colts. Marquise Brown, wide receiver, Oklahoma. The Colts suddenly look like a team that has the look of a contender. A defensive player is the wiser choice, but Andrew Luck needs another reliable wideout other than T.Y. Hilton, and Brown could be that. 27, the Oakland Raiders from the Dallas Cowboys. A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss. The Raiders now shift their focus to offense, where they do need some young blood at skilled positions. Brown was overshadowed by DK Metcalf in college, and Brown would be a nice piece for Derek Carr in that offense going forward. 28, the Los Angeles Clippers. Jeffrey Simons, defensive tackle, Mississippi State. Upgrading either line with this pick would be a wise move by the Chargers. A talent like Simmons on the defensive line with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram would be frightening. 29, the New England Patriots. Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle, Clemson. The Pats arguably should be exploring trading up for Tom Brady's successor or take an offensive lineman here, but passing up on the defensive talent in Wilkins won't be easy. The Pats need some help on the defensive line, and Wilkins can come in and start immediately for Bill Belichick. 30, the Los Angeles Rams. Montez Sweat, defensive end, Mississippi State. The Rams are a team that needs young blood on the edges, and Sweat would be a fine choice. He had 12.5 sacks this past season, but he is not athletic as guys like Nick Bosa or Josh Allen, which shouldn't shy off any team, especially the Rams. 31, the Kansas City Chiefs. Mack Wilson, linebacker, Alabama. The Chiefs have need at pretty much everywhere on the defense, and now one at running back emerges with the Kareem Hunt disaster off their hands. Their defense will hold them back from not winning a Super Bowl, so Wilson is the pick here to solidify the linebacker position. 32, the Green Bay Packers from the New Orleans Saints. Noah Fant, tight end, Iowa. Jimmy Graham isn't the same player he once was in New Orleans, so the Packers should snag the best tight end in this draft class in Fant. He is very athletic, and he can have a similar impact as Dallas Goedert did as a rookie with the Eagles this past season. Before I go to my best bet, there's breaking baseball news. Adam Ottavino signs with the New York Yankees, 3 years, $27 million. That contract is a steal for Ottavino. I'm not the biggest fan of Ottavino as he's coming off the best year of his career, but the case for him is that he's improved each and every year, and he's done a lot of his work with Colorado, who obviously plays in Coors Field and pitched well in Coors Field. And if you pitch well in Coors Field, then hey, maybe you're onto something. But Ottavino isn't a bad piece. He obviously makes the Yankees bullpen better, as they have now Ottavino with Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman, Dellin Betances, Chad Green. That is a really, really nice bullpen that Brian Cashman is assembling. And we talked about chances they wind up landing Manny Machado a couple of minutes ago. But now Brian Cashman seems to be busy right now upgrading his pen. And there's a report out the other day that he's looking at starting pitching with CC Sabathia and his health issues, that they could perhaps go out and trade for Ace, as I just discussed on the podcast a few minutes ago as well. So I'm interested to see how the Yankees cap off this offseason, whether it's Machado or a trade or whatever. And now I'm going to do my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. It is a mixture of tennis, NBA, and NHL. Or I'm sorry, college hoops, no NHL. Roger Federer, Grigor Dimitrov, the Denver Nuggets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Marshall, Hofstra, UNC Greensboro, Western Kentucky, Murray State, Washington, Utah Valley, and St. Mary's. About 3-1, I wagered $1 to win $3.11 with a payout of $4.11. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping college basketball, NBA, NHL, the Australian men's and women's opens. We'll talk more MLB free agency. Maybe we'll do MLB power rankings as we head closer to the start of spring training. We're about a month away, but still the two best free agents out there are still not signed yet, which is why I'm weary of doing power rankings right now. But I'll do them anyway. And I'll also give you my picks for the AFC and NFC championship games, along as my best bet of tomorrow night. I hope you guys have a great day.